So I'm talking about Ike Lawrence right now. Ike Lawrence is one of 4 candidates running for the governor of Kentucky. Matt Bevin is the incumbent, and then you have 3 challengers, William E. Woods, Robert Goforth, and Ike Lawrence. So you have 4 Republicans who are running for governor, and then you got 4 Democrats. Since I'm talking about Ike Lawrence, I'm going to stick with the Republicans. So Matt Bevin is the incumbent, Robert Goforth, William E. Woods, and Ike Lawrence. So Ike Lawrence he's a certified teacher, he's a landlord. He built new tennis courts for Henry Clay High School, nonpartisan candidate for mayor. So he's done a lot of things. His resume goes on and on. I'm getting to the bad things. I've already mentioned the good things about him, and there's one last thing. So he's sick of the rental properties being destroyed off campus by the alcohol parties. So that's why he wants to make alcohol more accessible. If you're an adult, and it's your body, why would you be opposed to that? I'm for freedom, so there's a lot of dry counties in Kentucky, so you could get thrown in jail and have your vehicle confiscated if you drive through a dry county with the intent to distribute. If you have, if you're in a dry county, and there's 120 counties in Kentucky, so there's like 50 counties that are still dry. So he wants to make the UK campus wet. And then he also mentioned that when it comes to UK, he pointed out that only 29% of the freshmen graduate in 4 years. So UK isn't doing, 7 out of the 10 freshmen that go into UK are not graduating. They're not getting a degree, so they're not being able to use that to go anywhere in life. So 29% graduate after 4. That's ridiculous. And then he also points out that there's an $8 million coach who doesn't win games. So we're sitting there paying $8 million to a coach at UK basketball, or this basketball, right? So, and he doesn't win. He doesn't win. They're losing to other colleges that pay a lot less. And so what a big old waste. You could save $8 million right there and just, hire a decent coach. So there's a lot of good things that I liked about him. There's some neutral things, too. He was talking about how there's 400 boarded-up houses in Lexington. So I like that he's looking at the boarded-up houses. He's looking at government buildings, and he's looking at bridges. He's looking at the infrastructure that's currently in place, and he's saying, how come we're not using these things? How come we're not doing something with the current infrastructure? And the 400 boarded-up houses, he says he wants, to get those fixed up. But he also mentions that he wants to get truant teenagers in prison labor to fix them up. He wants to get a GoFundMe to get the materials donated to the project. So this is good outside thinking. In a way, I don't care for the prison labor. We're going to have prison slave labor. Slavery is illegal in Colorado. You use prison labor, then you're going to pay them $1 at least an hour. And then truant teenagers, those are Huckleberry Finns. We're going to get a bunch of Huckleberry Finns and then enslave them, too, to clean up these 400 boarded-up houses. So it's good that he's pointing out the problems. I don't exactly like his prescription. I do like that he put out the GoFundMe account. So that way you're getting, basically saying you can do it for free, right? Get the GoFundMe account, you get the materials that are donated to the project to clean up the 400 boarded-up houses, because when you have boarded-up houses, it decreases property value for everybody on that block or anybody that's around there. And then he also wants to raise some money by auctioning naming rights for the bridge. So there's bridge, let's get some naming rights, make some money with the naming rights, get some money from GoFundMe, use the truant teenagers and the prison labor, and then that's how we'll be able to fix up the 400 boarded up houses. I wouldn't be against just having a housing department and just paying, folks to go out there and actually do it. That's, those are homes. We have homeless. We have 30 homeless people. We have 30 empty houses per one homeless person. So it's just a coordination failure, just a psychopathic culture that protects the property of banks and foreign investors over giving a damn about their own people. So I like that he addressed the problem. I like the GoFundMe account. The auction naming rights for the bridge is okay. The prison labor and the truant teenagers I wasn't really down with. The problem, I'm not down with at all, actually. So the problem is not guns. This is a meme that he had posted on his Facebook page. Ballotpedia doesn't say shit about him, so you're going to have to go to, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth survey. You're going to have to go, there's some other surveys that he did, or you have to go to his Facebook page. You have to ask him directly. He's got a website, ILikeIkeForGovernor.com. ILikeIkeForGovernor.com. His phone number is also 859-351-2142. He will talk to you. You have some issues you want to talk to him about, you want to see where he stands on this or that issue, he'll talk to you. So he's got respect for the common man. He's got respect for the average American, the average Kentuckian. Whereas some of these candidates wouldn't even give you the time of day. How much power and influence do you think you're going to get if you don't even talk to them? And, if you don't even talk to them, how much you think they're going to listen to anything that you have to say? No, they're just going to do whatever the hell they want to do, and they're advisors, and they're going to just leave you out in the cold. So that's a neutral thing, right? I like that he was addressing the problem. I didn't exactly like one of his prescriptions, but I like the other two. The meme, he had a Clint Eastwood meme, and it had all these words on, on the picture. And the word said that the problem is not guns. It's hearts without God, homes without discipline, schools without prayer, and courtrooms without justice. So I don't really care. The problem is not guns. I'm pro-Second Amendment, so that's okay. It's hearts without God. And I don't know. I think religion's bullshit. Homes without discipline. That it seems almost like corporal punishment. That's child abuse. I can't stand that. Discipline. You also need freedom and peace, and you need security. So if you're just focused on discipline, schools without prayer, again, a religious thing, right? So if we're, we had some Muslims or Buddhist or, Hindu in our neighborhood, are we going to start praying Hindu? Are we going to start, bow down to Allah? There's a separation between church and state. So I don't really care about the religious aspect. The discipline smacks up against child abuse. What's the distinction between discipline and child abuse? Do you have a distinction? Because if you don't have a distinction, then it almost seems like it might be the same thing. So I need to hear a distinction between, his discipline, his idea of discipline, and his idea of child abuse. But courtrooms without justice. Courtrooms without justice. It's very corrupt. Kentucky is very, very corrupt. You wonder why the cops get away with anything and everything that they do? Because you have courtrooms without justice. And ultimately, the courts should be accessible to the general public. The courts should be accessible to the general public, and they should have an equal say-so. The court system should be a third party, a non-biased third party to resolve disputes. But they're not non-biased. You're not a lawyer. They'll just fucking laugh in your face and not give a shit. Even if you represent yourself, what a fool, right? You represent yourself, that's a fool. You got a fool who's representing you. So I like that he's criticizing that there's courtrooms without justice in Kentucky. He wants to pass a ballot amendment so governor candidates aren't forced to choose a lieutenant governor running mate. I don't really know what I think about that. If you run for governor, then you have to choose a running mate, and you got to write down the name of the running mate, and then you run. And he's sitting there saying, well, that's not really fair. Why are you forcing someone to choose a running mate? Just let the lieutenant governor, let them run. So he's going to introduce a ballot amendment so they're not forced to choose a lieutenant governor running mate. I don't know. I guess I don't really care about that. Why not have a running mate? If you can't find one person to support you, how are you going to find anybody else? Maybe people criticize his lieutenant governor choice, and so he's like, well, it's not me, but whatever, I could care less. When I'm reading the passages, I look at the person who's running, and I just totally skip over, the lieutenant governor thing. It doesn't bother me. It would be important if the persons die, if they die in office or if they get assassinated. Only one governor in the United States has ever been assassinated, and that was in Kentucky, 1900, William Goebel. So the chances for them getting shot is very small. If they die of old age, he's 63, so he's got another 10 years in him. Then there's the lieutenant governor is mostly a sinecure position. It's a good champion, and there's some boards that they got to sit on. but they don't have much power, and they don't have much say-so, so they just kind of sit there like a lump on the log. So I could kind of see where he's coming from, but again, it's not a pressing issue. He said he'll fix the pension system with the Bluegrass Institute's plan. I'm not for sure what that plan is. Chris Tobey has been talking about the pension system. I think we should check out Chris Tobey. And Bevin, he said that on Bevin, Ike Lawrence said that Bevin was only able to fully fund the pension system when he raised taxes on 17 services. So that's not a very good conservative. You got to, pay all these corrupt judges a shit ton of fucking money for their retirement, right? Because they didn't invest their $130,000 properly. They got paid $130,000 every year, but they couldn't invest it properly, and so we got to pay them $130,000 for the rest of our lives, the rest of their lives and our lives. So that's not conservative at all. And then to pay the pensions by raising taxes on 17 different services. If a Democrat was in Kentucky and raised taxes on 17 services, they would have got hit hard. But a conservative Republican does it, well, he had to, right? He had to finance it. Oh, okay. So that's not conservative, right? Raising taxes on 17 services. I'd be interested in hearing about which of those 17 services were the taxes were raised on. Now comes for the critical part, right? Now comes for the fun part, the part that you've been waiting the whole time. I'll probably get more views on my second video than my first one. And here we go. Okay, so he's a Republican, right? So automatically, what the fuck? I don't understand how anybody could be one-sided or, we need a balance. We need, a heart. We need to give a shit about people, and then we need to be sensible. We need a brain. We need a heart. We need both. So we need to be socialist and we need to be capitalist. We need both. Capitalism forgets the community. Communism forgets the individual. We need to care about the individual. We need to care about the community. We need balance. Why would you just say, oh, I'm just one way? While I am mostly progressive, I have conservative views. I have liberal views. I believe in balance. And to sit there and you're so one-sided, and who's deciding these things? You just go along with the party line? So he's a Republican, so that's, he talks bad about liberals, so he seems to be just a conservative. He's just conservative. He doesn't care about liberalism or liberals whatsoever. So he's got a brain, but just doesn't have a heart, right? He's opposed to the liberal policies in Lexington, which is what? The regulations? What are the liberal policies, right? That's all you got to do is just attach it to Obama, attach it to Hillary or Bill Clinton, right? Well, Bill Clinton did this. Well, he actually believed in Bill Clinton when it comes to kicking people off of welfare. He says people should only be on welfare for 5 years and then they should get kicked off. So he's emulating Bill Clinton, right, when it comes to kicking folks off of welfare after 5 years. He also quoted Joe Biden. Joe Biden is for the death penalty against drug dealers, and he agrees with that. So that should show you how conservative the Democrat Party is when you have the Republicans sitting there saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to do the Democrat idea of Joe Biden's and, put drug dealers to death. But alcohol is not a drug, so that's a contradiction. Alcohol is totally a drug. It gets you fucked up, and you're, out of your mind, and then puking. So how can you not say it's not a drug compared to marijuana? Marijuana is a wimp of a drug compared to alcohol. Alcohol causes so many problems. So when he is opposed to the liberal policies, he's actually liberal when it comes to alcohol. He's for the liberal policies of alcohol, and he's for infrastructure and, different things like that. So there's some liberal ideas that I'm sure all these conservative Republicans would believe on, but if they believe in. But if you sit there and just, denigrate, we have, yin and yang. We got estrogen, we got testosterone. We all got a balance. So if you just sit there and say, forget the estrogen and forget the balance and forget the other side completely. I mean, liberals, Social Security, liberals, the weekend, the end of child labor. There's a bunch of things that liberals have done that's good, and, some things conservatives have done that are good, too. He's, the war on poverty, I never asked him about it, but he's probably not for the war on poverty. He thinks that charter schools, here's a liberal idea. So he believes in public education and not charter schools. He says charter schools are failing and they're a bad idea. I believe in vouchers, okay? So I believe in charter schools. I believe the public education system has failed. It's abysmal, right? You only got, 10% of Kentuckians voting? How come the public education system of Kentucky isn't teaching their children democracy and how they're supposed to participate? If the children of Kentucky aren't even voting, right, 13% turnout rate in 2015, so that means 87% of Kentuckians aren't voting? 87%. I'm getting thirsty. But if, what the hell is that about? So public education, there's all the problems, all those obesity problems and stuff. So they're not teaching civics. They're not teaching democracy. It's about obedience to authority. It's not about thinking for themselves. And we're in the internet generation. You're going to still teach a bunch of children how to work in factories when there's no factories around here to work at. So you need to be intelligent, you need to be smart, you need to be able to not just get involved in politics. If you're not voting, you're not doing anything else, you're not running for anything, you're not putting pressure on the politicians. There's 30 different county positions, so who's getting these county positions? Just some asshole who just keeps on taking power and, who gives a shit? Fuck it all, right? So by teaching civics in the public education system, they could get jobs, as a jailer. They could get jobs as a magistrate. And that would be good practice for, for their civic development, their political careers. So he's opposed to charter schools, right? He's opposed to charter schools. He says they're failing, they're a bad idea, whereas Matt Bevin is totally in favor of charter schools. Ike Lawrence wants more discipline in the home. He says that's going to help the public schools out, right? If there's being disciplined at home, then the teachers will have all the power. He says that fatherless homes are the problem. Fatherless homes are creating unruly kids. Fatherless homes are creating poverty. So he really wants to bring the father back into the home, which, I'm not opposed to that. Good, solid, family unit is good. But whether it's, two fathers, two mothers, whether it's a grandmother and uncle and aunt, whether it's, 20 people, whatever it is, I believe in the family unit. And, having a female influence and a father influence, that goes back to the balance. So I could see how that's a problem, but I don't think it's going to solve all the problems that he says it's going to solve. And when he talks about more discipline in the home, that just, reeks of child abuse. So I need to know the difference between discipline and child abuse. What does Ike Lawrence think is the difference? Because child abuse is illegal. You're not allowed to abuse your kids in Kentucky. There is law after law about you cannot abuse your kids. And it's an assault. You spank a kid, you think it's okay? Okay, so you got all these adults who go around killing and murdering. They don't ever get spanked. But you're going to spank an innocent tiny kid. That's an assault. And anybody who hits an innocent child for, absolutely for no apparent reason or for some trivial reason should be charged with assault. So more discipline in the home, that helps public schools out. No, public schools need to be smarter and they need to embrace, the internet and freedom and independence and democracy. That's what the public schools of Kentucky need to do. He's opposed to taking down Confederate monuments. Fuck the Confederacy. We don't need to honor the Confederacy. So John Hunt Morgan statue was taken down in Lexington, and he thought that was bullshit. I think it's bullshit that we would ever defend the Confederacy. Yeah, it's history, but just to keep it, no, it's racist. Only the racist really, maybe there's something about history, but the racists definitely want to keep the Confederate statues up. They definitely do, because they're racist pieces of shit. They don't like black folks. They don't like black folks got freedom, even though my freedom and your freedom is connected. You can't have a fair contract with somebody who's being oppressed. So the United States, Kentucky fought for the United States. Kentucky fought against slavery. Kentucky fought for the right side. And Confederates, put that shit in a museum. We don't need to put that in the public square. That was right in front of the courthouse, John Hunt Morgan statue. Ike Lawrence is opposed to universal health care, even though he points out all those obesity problems and all those, cancer problems and diabetes, but he's not for universal health care. He recognizes that there's a lot of unhealthy people in Kentucky. There's also meth users, and then there's outbreaks of STDs. People are just, fucking here, fucking there, and then everybody gets chlamydia. in the little tiny town of, population 50. So universal health care is also, good for you, good for me, good for everybody. You want to, you're going to catch some dirty, just some dirty crap that you scraped off the street. Yeah, no, if everybody's healthy, then there's less chance that you'll catch some communicable disease from other people. So I don't like that he doesn't support universal health care. He doesn't support charter schools. He's all about more discipline in the home. Fatherless homes are a problem, but more discipline in the home. What's the definition of discipline, right? When it comes to reasonable parents should be able to define the difference between discipline and abuse, but my guess is that they don't. Kentucky's #1 for child abuse and wife abuse and elderly abuse, animal abuse, all kinds of abuse. So, he's for legal medical marijuana. He didn't rush out and grab a hold of it, but he's not for recreational marijuana. So he's going to be for the war on drugs, and he's for the death penalty for drug dealers. So he says that if they are an accessory to murder, so I guess he's saying meth dealers, they sell meth and then they overdose, then that person should be charged with a crime. You could use that, same argument against guns. But, it's illegal. It's too much. It's too far. I believe in freedom for adults. This is my body. It's not yours. So it's good that he said he's for legal medical marijuana, but he's not for recreational marijuana. It's on its way. It's coming. You have a dozen freedom states. You also have Adam Edelin, who's talking about decriminalizing marijuana. Adam Edelin seems like the favorite to win in the Democratic primary because of the Jeff Young effect. He's not for public finance elections. He wants to cap the campaign contributions to $100,000. If you had public financed elections, then that would give everybody equal access, and then it would be inexpensive. I think Kentucky could finance their own elections and have KET debates and have, the forums, have everybody equal on the forums, the literature. They get the same amount of space on the literature. And so it would make it more of a fair campaign, and it would also cost a lot less. You have millions of dollars, the one has $2 million, the other one's got $1.8 million. They get millions of dollars to, get a $200,000 job. So there's some other shit, right? It's the power. It's the power and it's the ability to influence policy. So having all that money in politics also, do you, resonate with rich, wealthy people, people that get a $1 million loan, people that can't even go to the grocery store and buy their own groceries? They think they need an ID. Can you really relate? Do you think that the, extremely wealthy people, if they've never been poor, if they don't give a shit about other people, you think they really relate to you? So, he's for the death penalty for drug dealers. The death penalty if you murder somebody. So I can understand, the logic to that, but I don't agree with that as a, campaign plank to his platform. He's opposed to liberal policies. All those damn libs. Yeah, Kentucky needs a lot more liberals, and you need to be fair, and, you need a brain and a heart. You need a brain and a heart. If you're just a conservative, then it seems to me you don't give a shit about other people. So he's against taking down the Confederate monuments. He wants to use the truant children, the Huckleberry Finns in Kentucky who don't go to school to clean up the lakes and streams. He wants to use prison labor. So he wants to get free shit, right? And that's another thing conservatives say, oh, they just want free shit. You're throwing people in prison so you get free labor. You're sitting there telling children because they didn't go to your authoritarian, totalitarian, oppressive public school system. I'm for universal education, but public education, the point of it was to teach, unruly Americans how to live in a democracy. They're not doing that. They're just teaching them to obey authority, and that's all they're teaching them. And ultimately, you learn by, self-education is the most powerful form of education. You're only retaining 5% of a lecture. On the opioids, he refers to Dan Rose's 10-point plan. So opioids, the war on drugs, he says government shouldn't act on global warming, which, global warming is a problem and there's things that we can do. So even just encouraging people to recycle, to save money, to turn off lights, the government could do something about global warming. But I think he might think global warming's a myth, which is, that's bullshit. Humans are definitely contributing to the, change of the climate. They have an effect. They definitely have an effect. Now, what can we do about it? We might disagree with that, but global warming is here, and we should do something. It was the ozone layer before, the CFCs, right, the aerosol cans. So there's a big hole in the ozone layer, and it's the same shit, the global warming. So, okay. What else? He's kicking people off of welfare, so people actually need, that's the housing and food and water. There can be corruption. It's just crazy how conservatives will say, well, look at the corruption of the poor people. They use their food stamps and they buy, a bunch of junk food. Okay, what about the judges that take millions of dollars? What about that corruption? What about, so, I can afford a little bit of corruption as long as I know that the people are being taken care of. There's a lot of poor people that's a death sentence, and there's homeless. They don't have a chance whatsoever in Kentucky. So fatherless homes, yeah, I think, making the family stronger and the family unit tighter is okay. That could help with some of the issues, but that doesn't directly mean that if you have a father in the home that you're not going to be poor, or, that you're going to be a stellar student in public education. He points out that Indiana and Tennessee's low taxes is sending jobs out of Kentucky. To have a robust economy, what you need is a big middle class. With a big middle class, everybody's buying and spending. There's hustle and bustle, and that's a good economy. So instead of, just lowering taxes here and there and hoping that they entice jobs to come back to Kentucky, I don't know. I believe in low taxes, so you should be as efficient as possible. But it just, that one didn't get me. He's also not concerned about the big prison rates in Kentucky. He says there's no such thing as mass incarceration. The masses are not incarcerated. It is individuals who commit crimes, not the masses. I can see that, right? If you commit crimes, then you should go to jail. But there's corruption in the police and in the judicial branch and the prosecutorial. So there's corruption, and even in the public pretenders. So if you have some corrupt asshole fuck somebody over that didn't, an innocent person, then they're going to be, put in jail forever. So, yeah, individuals do commit crimes, but there are mass incarceration when it comes to drugs, when it comes to, kind of racist, kind of petty stuff. But if you're a judge, prosecutor, or cop, you're not going to go to jail. So there's some people that's immune from jail. They get no jail time whatsoever. I want to finish this up. So, ninth, highest incarceration rate, Kentucky is. Number 2 in jail and women. Number 2 state in the U.S. separating children from a parent being locked up in jail. If he's going to sit there and say that we need to make sure the father is inside the home, if a father is going to get fucked over for smoking a joint, for a single joint, and now that kid has no parent, how's that good? That goes against his whole, put the father back inside the home. He's a landlord, so don't expect any savings and loan. Banks helping Kentuckians get into home ownership. That's also another staple of a good economy. Get home ownership. Get people in the homes. Then they can save their stuff. They can earn wealth and save that wealth and then invest. They can use it as collateral. They also get equity. Home ownership also, it's good for taxes. It's good for the society. It gives a sense of pride for them. They want to stick around. They want to, give a shit about their place, whereas renters kind of, it's not theirs. So would you rather own your own home or rent your own home? Everybody would rather, most people, I think, intelligent people, would rather own their own home. And again, that more discipline in the home makes me worried about child abuse. So, what's his distinction between discipline and child abuse? He's a landlord. Is he going to help the renters get home ownership? The prison rates, he's not concerned about the big prison rates in Kentucky. There's a lot of bullshit that people are getting thrown in jail for. And then there's a lot of crimes that people aren't getting in jail for, or getting thrown in jail for them, right? It's okay to, child abuse. There's a lot of child abuse. There's domestic violence. There's elderly abuse. And, you have to call the police and then hope they take your side. And who knows? If you're a male and cops are just dicks to men, so you're less likely to be believed. So kicking folks off of welfare, not believing in global warming, still fighting the war on drugs, not legalizing marijuana. He really hates the unions. He says unions are a monopoly. So he's not for the leverage. The only leverage that the working class people have are unions. So, right, it's more authoritarianism. He's not for public financed elections. He's not for recreational marijuana. He's for the war on drugs, so he doesn't believe you have a right to your own body as opposed to universal health care, even though he recognizes all those health problems. He's against taking down Confederate monuments. Should we pop up a bunch of Nazi monuments?